All right, Dos, Amin, welcome to our September Membership Cafe. I am Tanea Watts, NADA's Membership Coordinator. Co-hosting with me today is Sarah Versage, our Executive Director. Today we are conversing with David Eisen, founding member and training co-chair. You see his signature alongside Katara Bryant's on those ADS records of trainings we send you when you first get trained, or when you complete your training. It is no coincidence that we are speaking with David at this time. As you know, we have been exploring NADA's past through the History Series platform Full Circle. David has been around through it all, is still here, and I, for one, find this intriguing and would like to hear his story. But before we do, I have a bit of business to take care of. This cafe is held on the third Wednesday of every month for about an hour long. This call is recorded and will be edited, and a YouTube link provided. This and previous cafes can be found on our website in the member portal. Today's cafe structure will follow this outline. Top of the hour, we'll be hearing from David. Around the middle of the hour, we'll answer some questions from all of you. Please drop your questions in the chat, and Mary and Sarah will ask David your questions. All right, and Mary and Sarah, can you give us an aho so everyone knows who you are?
Aho.
Thank you.
Aho.
All right, and then bottom of the hour, we'll open the room up for discussion and give you some announcements. All right, this is top of the hour. Hi, David, welcome.
And I just go, huh?
Yeah, you just go. Okay, so first, tell us a little bit about yourself presently and where in the world are you?
Presently, I reside in Portland, Oregon, and I have for the last 33 and a half years. I'm the Executive Director of Quest Center for Integrative Health, a not-for-profit health clinic serving marginalized communities, including LGBTQ plus 1A, 2S, as well as poor folks in this Tri-County area here in Portland. Was appointed by the governor most recently as a commissioner on the Oregon Pain Management Commission. At Quest, we set up the first transitional housing, alcohol and drug-free transitional housing for the LGBTQ community here in Oregon. We're about to set up another house. We see about 3,000 unduplicated folks a year. I love walking on the beach. No, but I do.
And you're also NADA's training co-chair.
And I'm NADA's training co-chair. I've been a past president of NADA. Jay Renaud just sent me pictures of a conference that we had in Portland in 1990 something and 91, I think it was. And Ruth Ackerman's in there. Ana Oliveria, who was then NADA's president, is in there. I look much thinner and have lots more hair that's black. But I think I'll send facsimiles to the office so that we can have them in our archives. I saw some names on here that I need to just call out because without them, I wouldn't be in NADA. And the first one's Nancy Smalls. Nancy, are you there, or are you just sort of like hanging? Nancy? Anyway, I remember very, very clearly the first day I walked into Lincoln Hospital, and it was, the story goes like this, and it's true. It's 1977. I'm in graduate school, and I read a magazine. They had magazines back then in print and paper. There's no internet. I read the magazine. Mike had written an article and it talked about acupuncture, which I couldn't even pronounce then, and how it was being used by this group of workers that were attached to the Lords and what was left of the Panthers at Lincoln Hospital. And I'm thinking to myself, what is this? What is acupuncture? And I call up Mike. I try to call up Mike, and it took about 15 tries. truly. I'd get cut off. He would answer and then leave. And then he said, "Sure, come." And it's like, that was it. I mean, sure, come. And that was it. And I went, and I knew the South Bronx quite well from a sordid past that I had. And I walk in, and first of all, the remnants of the latest siege by the New York police, where they had cut the power and the water cannons and the dogs, they weren't there, but the stories were there, and you could tell the place had been occupied. And I walk in, and there is a radio playing, I believe, I forget his name, a Latin jazz percussionist who was very politically progressive at the time. And somebody also had a cassette recording of The Ballad or the Bullet, Malcolm X's speech. And I walk in, and immediately upon entering, I come into the room, and who walks up to me, but I find out at that point after our encounter, it's Mutulu. And Mutulu comes up to me and says, "What are you doing here?" And that was just like that. It wasn't, "Hi, what's your name?" I'm Abala. It was, "What are you doing here?" And I was taken aback, but said, "Well, I spoke to, Dr. Smith, and Dr. Smith isn't here." I said, "Okay." And out of the corner of my eye, and this is where Nancy comes in, she's sitting, there's Wafia to the right, and 2 desks back from Wafia is Nancy Smalls. And she looks at me and she says, "What are you?" And it was like, and I immediately gravitated towards somebody that I didn't feel was being hostile. And I told her my story. And back in the day, I read palms as an entree. And she said, "Do you want me to read your palm?" And from that day forward, she called me her blue-eyed gypsy. And that was my entree to Lincoln Hospital. And for the next 6 months, I was there picking up dirty newspapers from people's feet underneath, because it was a cold linoleum floor. I watched, and I got really enamored with a man named David Delaney, who was one of the acupuncturists there. And it was Jose Aponte, Tony Huerta. That was sort of like the latest gaggle of cadre of folks that were there. And they embraced me. And Nancy was really quite generous and open and supportive. And that was the start of a very long journey that is yet to end.
Yeah.
And from there, I stayed for several months, and Mike and I did our first barnstorming about June or July of that year. And wherever we could get in, we'd go and we'd talk Boston General. Then there was the Crow Agency, but that was several years later. That was in 83, I think.
I read about that. I read.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the Crow Agency was, wow. I had never seen rural poverty before. And I had never seen rural poverty at that scale before. I mean, I'm talking dirt floors, no glass in the windows, single lights, no running water. And we got there, and I won't say names, even though they have passed since then, but the person that met us was inebriated when they met us, and but was a great host. We slept on people's floors, and it was me and Tony and Mike, Pam Mills from Chicago, who was involved with very progressive working class movements, sort of like White Lightning was at Lincoln, called Rising Up Angry, and the May 19th Committee. Boy, it's all flooding back. And I remember I remember that was my first sweat lodge. They took me and Tony up into the mountains and they built the lodge as we were there. And it was old, blankets and such. And I'm there and I'm thinking, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? But here's an interesting beat on the story is that we had done a full training that day, had treated many people. And this was, quite sacred, although it looked like somebody's backyard. It was quite sacred. And to be doing this, B, to be allowed to do it, not as members of the tribe. And they told us what to do. And we go in, they say, okay, you lie with your head next to the stones, not away. So it's more tolerable that way. And I don't remember how long I had been in there, but we're in there and I'm lying down. And all of a sudden, this person starts to chant and I'm sweating bad. And there's no water. You can't drink no water. And all of a sudden, I start hearing Yiddish. And I'm hearing, which is the language of my ancestors and my grandma. And I'm hearing this thing over and over and over again. And I'm hearing in Yiddish, Mayim Kesef, which means water is life. And I come to find out later that that's in fact what the chant was about, was the essential elemental components of life and the directions and where those elements of life came from directionally. It was like, okay, that's a little freaky. And we went on to train, and at the end of the time, the sun ceremony was coming up, which is this huge festival, several-day festival at Crow Agency, and outside of Butte, Montana. Anyway, the other thing about that was it was at that time when I had never met any Native American people. What did I know? I mean, I had known what most white people growing up in middle America knew, right? We got into Butte one day and we went to eat something, and it was at a bar. And there was a white bar and there was a bar for Crow. It was like, where the fuck am I? It was a trip. And that wasn't, what was that, 30 years ago, 35 years ago? I mean, it was yesterday.
Yeah.
And from there was working with the Lakota Sioux and the Tulalip and the Lummi and the Umatilla. So anyway, my history with Nada comes out of the history of the people struggling to self-determine their destiny in the South Bronx. And I always have carried that sort of like cloak with me. And it's always been the work I've done. I've never been in private practice. I've always been in public health. My raison d'etre has always been to make systems, develop programs that are of service to people in the most need. And that came out of my experience at Lincoln, my experience with Indigenous nations. And here I am. It's like I teach at OCOM, the Oregon College of Oriental Medicine. Carol Taub, I saw her name on there. She was instrumental in helping solidify the course I taught there. That was the didactic for NADA training. And we all owe Carol a debt in being one of the people that saw the worth of that and the commitment to NADA and commitment to the work. I'm trying to see who else might be on here.
No, David, you have answered so many questions I was going to ask you and haven't even asked you them yet.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
This question is sort of motivated by the fact that in a couple of months, we're going to have our last History Series event for this year. And, You had mentioned to me that you were at Lincoln Hospital in 1978, and that's what we're going to be talking about and looking at in that event. And I just wanted to get your take on it. What was your experience of the closing of Lincoln Detox?
Oh, I didn't believe it when I heard. I was, in all of the bullshit that people had to put up with administratively, and how Mike, shielded and protected the program and his coworkers there. I mean, I was dumbfounded. I mean, okay, you don't like these people, fine. You have personality differences, fine. But this is something that the community desperately relies upon. And I mean, even an opportunistic political hack could see that. And yet it's still, so I was angry. I was sad, but I was angry. And, I've always been looking over my shoulder with the programs I've started here in Portland and around the country and the world, saying, okay, when's that shoe going to drop? And one thing I found is to make it so that it's not personality driven, that you inculcate the protocol and the programming into systems that are sustainable. So we were able to get Medicaid to pay for, acupuncture for detox and addictions recovery work here in Oregon. We were the first ones to do that. I think that's been crucial, right? Because no matter what program or person or relationship you have with an administrator or one of the doctors or one of the providers, if it's not sustainable, that person can go away. If it's not sustainable, you can go away. But the key thing to remember is always that the tools have to be there for the community, no matter what. So, I think that's a lesson I've learned, and it's steadied me quite well. The other thing for me, and I know this is more than you asked, Sarah, about the closing of Lincoln, is that it's always about being of service. That has to be the mitigating factor of why you do what you do. Hold on, I'm sorry, that person's here. I just got to go let him in. I'll be right back.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out. David is letting a contractor in. So very interesting. Does anybody?
That was fast.
Yeah. Thank you for coming back.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Ruth, I have a picture of you in Portland with me and Anna, and you look beautiful. Not that you don't look beautiful now, but I'll send that to you. I'm sending it to the office so it can be archived.
I would love it.
And for those of you who don't know, Ruthie was instrumental, talking about NADA history, in supporting the work, she and her husband, John, in supporting NADA in California to this day, got agencies and county municipalities to not only support, but fund programming for acupuncture to be done. And a man named Alex Brumbo, who's passed, who wrote a book that's out of print, but everybody should have a copy of it. And I still think we have, didn't his daughter give us like what left copies she has? And there it is. Thank you, Sarah.
Yes.
I think it's so important to recognize not just Lincoln, but all of the people that have took up the banner of the work, who are still with us and who are still, doing the good fight. It's essential that we support each other more now than ever. It's essential that we also understand that AccuDetox alone isn't the answer to what's going on with our culture and with marginalized folks in our communities. It's, for me, it's a never-ending list of health inequities, whether it's housing or health disparities or food insecurity or environmental genocide. It's all linked. And we have a tool that helps us get a foot in a door so that we can offer a tool in support of people struggling, of people trying to get a leg up for themselves. I think we need to really be careful about not having a missionary concept about what we do, that we're going to go in and save people. It's not the right attitude. You'll find that it's not sustainable. Let me put it to you that way, instead of judging it. Because, you know, the pathways of hell are paved with good intentions, whether they have acupuncture needles on the road or not. And learning and understanding what we're dealing with is so much more than just a 5-needle protocol. Yeah. I'm getting on a soapbox. I apologize. But you said I could talk. So
I do have a question, David, and it's something that I have been wondering, and Sarah put it to really good words yesterday, but around the forming of the NADA organization, the association, what was what were all the things that happened? I was telling Sarah, I said, I think it's important that we know those struggles, that we understand those struggles, so we don't take it for granted. But what was happening around and the catalyst for making the NADA association, and then also, why was it important to make it a nonprofit?
Oh, wow. I might need to call upon some help from some of my brothers and sisters on the call right here. It was okay. So you remember what I said about sustainability and it being of service? Well, it was really clear from the comrades at Lincoln, as well as from Mike, that this needed to spread out from the South Bronx. And how do you do that? And it was clear from when the small part that I did with Mike on the barnstorming around the country for a couple of years, that there needed to be an infrastructure to support that, right? And that Lincoln in and of itself, even though it was the mecca for all things, I mean, I would go back to Lincoln every year, sometimes twice a year, just to get re-energized in the work, re-energized in the feeling. And I had to see Nancy and I had to see Carlos because I had to. So as a not-for-profit, it allowed us contracting potential. What do I mean by that? We got a contract with Michigan, the state. Come on, help me out here, Carol, Ruthie, what was her name? Marilyn Miller.
There you go.
God, the coffee is kicking in. And we got, at that time, it was a sizable chunk of change, but we needed an entity to be able to carry that chunk of change. And, you know, it was something that I had developed with Marilyn through NADA, and it was for like $10,000, which was a lot of money back then. And all of that money went into NADA. I didn't take a dime of that. And that was sort of like the real jump starting of seeing the potential, right? But again, the infrastructure was no infrastructure, right? You'll see my name is on the paper for the incorporation, but the board it was all Mike, and it was all Mike and a couple of us. But there wasn't what we have now, the strength of commitment of a support staff, of a leader in Sarah that understands the history and the work that continues to need to be done. And a not-for-profit offers you that. It offered us that PPP loan that we got that helped keep us afloat, the EIDL loan that offered to keep us afloat. Yeah, I think there's an untapped resource in our NFP, our not-for-profit status, that we've yet to tap into.
Absolutely.
and it's not hard, but the work is hard. What the office does is laborious. And so does that answer your question, Tania?
Close enough. Thank you. Yes, it's very good.
Well,
Very good.
okay.
No, it's great. It's wonderful. I really appreciate and admire a lifetime commitment such as you have with NADA. And I really want to, yes.
I want to be really, really clear, right? So as a cis white guy, I'm aware of my privilege, and being aware and being committed to the work has enabled me to I've made an incredibly good living throughout my entire time with the tenets that I'm espousing right now. We pay our people really well. Our benefit package is almost hospital grade in what we afford to the workers at Quest. What comes around goes around. And it's essential to me to really be, to vocalize those things. We often do not say what we need to say because we don't think it's appropriate. But in these times of COVID, of the scab of being ripped off racism and sexism and homophobia in our culture, we don't have time sometimes to be, I don't think we have the luxury of being afraid to say things. It's essential to say things, right? Back in the early days of the AIDS epidemic, there was a triangle that said silence equals death. And I think that's so appropriate. And I think silence continues to equal death on so many levels, whether it's about racism or police violence or health inequities or health disparities. We need to constantly speak out. And that's uncomfortable, but we need to be able to allow ourselves the support to have these uncomfortable discussions. Anyway, blah, blah.
Thank you so much for sharing your history. I really appreciate that. We're at about the half-hour marker. Does anybody have any questions or comments for David? Or piece of history they'd like to add?
I do.
Yes.
David and Carol both were absolutely instrumental in getting things going in California. And they came down out of the goodness of their heart, I'm sure without being paid, to come and do trainings here in Santa Barbara. And
Right.
I'm sure they did that
That's
all
right.
over the place. It wasn't just here. Just wanted to thank you. We wouldn't
Oh.
be standing here, David.
Ruthie, we got put up in the best hotel in Santa Barbara.
Yeah, floor at my house. Are you
That's
kidding?
right.
Thank you, Ruth. I also wanted to ask you about Sarah was sharing with me that you had brought Medicaid for acupuncture to Oregon. What was that like? How did that happen?
So it isn't what you know, it's who you know. So totally real on so many levels. And timing and tone is everything. It's sort of like my mantra to the leadership team at Quest these days is timing and tone is essential. So I am at Hooper Center. Originally, I was brought out on a 9-month contract from Boston to Portland. Crack cocaine was exploding on the streets. There's still no medical intervention for most central nervous system stimulants. And Mike was right. God damn it, he was right. The criminal justice system at the time was the most progressive in looking at, and I know that's an oxymoron to say the criminal and justice system was progressive, but they knew they had a problem and that it wasn't making any sense to lock people up and when they would constantly be put back on the street and keep using. And so I was brought out to speak at a judges conference of all things. And I got a contract for 9 months and started the acupuncture program at Hooper Center, which sustainably is still running today. And I haven't been with the
kidding.
organization for 16 years, and it's still running today.
Wow.
And so at the time, Ron Wyden was he was a congressman. He wasn't a senator. His chief of staff, Gwen Baldwin, you got to remember names, came to Hooper. I don't even remember why or how. And she said, "What are you doing?" And like Mike always said, talk less, do more needling. I said, "Sit down, let me put some needles in here." And she said, "Why?" And I said, "Because you asked." And she fell asleep. And that, which is not uncommon, right? Young people fall asleep. A week later, Congressman Wyden comes into Hooper Center, and he said, "Gwen told me about you, blah, blah, blah." I stick needles in his ears. 9 months later, acupuncture was on the Medicaid menu for addictions in Oregon. You know, I helped with why it needed to be. It helped that it didn't cost anything at the time, literally, and it's still there. You know, not that it hasn't been threatened to be taken away innumerable times, but in over 30 years, it is stuck. And once I was appointed as a commissioner to the Oregon Pain Management Commission, we were able to expand its application in an incredible way. But that was how it happened. It was not this great, huge political push with the Acupuncture Association, you know, doing testimony and stuff. It was like getting needles in people. And I'm not saying it's this easy. It was a different time in a different place. But the rudimentary aspect of timing and tone, who you know, and not over glorifying, not overstating its potential, how it can be useful to help with a very difficult disease, and how it can be used in many different levels of approaching people with different kinds of behavioral health conditions.
I just want to add that Oregon still has the glory of being the only state that has Medicaid reimbursed for the NADA protocol. Unless somebody knows otherwise, I'm not familiar with another state that does that.
I think they call that
So,
preparation and luck meets opportunity, right?
What'd you say, Tina? I missed that.
I said preparation and luck meets opportunity. That's like
you know.
Did you want to add any other? I
Thing on
you
the-
know I was going to ask you, like, how did your early experience with NADA shape your life and career choices? And but you answered that at the beginning.
Do I give you the politically correct response or not?
You have witnesses, be careful.
Right, and it's being recorded. Damn.
It'll be on YouTube.
Oh, by the way, for all of you that celebrate Lashana Tova,
Happy New Year, David.
I mean, I still get choked up. It's so funny. I can say in all honesty, I would not be where I'm at today without standing on the shoulders of people at Lincoln. And with all of the bullshit, with all of the personality stuff, with all of the everything, Nada and Mike and Nancy and Carlos and all of my lifelong friends, some of whom are on this call, I am where I am at today because of my community. And I've been able to use my privilege to develop things that haven't been done before and continue to, I hope, be an example.
Thank you, David. Does anybody else have any more questions for David?
Or any questions? I mean, everybody's so quiet.
I know. It's like, we haven't had a cafe space in a while, so we took this up.
I have another question. How do you keep your program going, David, when so many other programs who look very robust a long time ago no longer exist?
Diversification. It's just not an outpatient treatment program. It's just not a detox program. It's a community-based program that looks towards people getting their lives back together. And it includes things that a funding scheme that's not singularly related to a grant, singularly related to Medicaid or Medicare, singularly related to donations. We have I've developed a 6-leg funding base for that financial sustainability. For some of you that were out, what was it, 3 years ago now, 4 years ago, Sarah, when we had a regional conference in Portland, some of you saw people that are still part of Quest today. I go out and recruit young people in recovery from different communities that want to do this work, that are enthused to do this work. And, as you can tell, the hair is receding every day, and I ain't getting no younger, and the work still needs to happen. So you lay that foundation. So diversified funding streams, always looking to fill a need in the community. What does the community need? We were asked, I'm on this, and I think it stays us well, because 2 weeks ago, we were in me and the director of behavioral health, Danny Deere at Quest, who 9 years ago was an intern in our alcohol and drug program, and now is the director of behavioral health. And her story is a good one. She did 7 straight years in penitentiary in Idaho for drugs, comes out, does what a lot of people in recovery do. I want to be a counselor. But you see potential, you support it. You just don't talk about it. You support it economically, you support it spiritually. And I think that's another way that you invest in people, not just in your own ideas, and you make them sustainable. And you fill the needs in the community. I mean, it's like you cannot rest on laurels. So anyway.
David, we have a question that came in that I'll read. Can you or anyone else speak to the path underground the protocol took over the years? I was taught post-Hurricane Katrina and the levees breaking by a member of the American Indian movement. He taught us of the origins, but was never part of the formal org. His name was Ron Doc Rosen, and was also given the name Wambli Tokahe.
Okay, so the question is, did I know Ron?
Can sort of perhaps that, and also just how the NADA protocol, kind of all the different rivers of it, going all the different paths that people taught it, in addition to the formal org, I guess maybe non-formally or underground.
So where is Nancy?
She went.
Nancy? No. Because I think she can speak better to it than I can. Remember, I'm a relative newcomer. I came in 77, 78. They had already been going for 6 years. You had the Amora brothers coming down from Toronto to help train people. And they were Japanese, right? And Dr. Wen was treating, who was a neurosurgeon, Carol, was that right? Ruthie? He was a neurosurgeon in
Hong Kong.
And Dr. Wen went to his uncle because he kept on getting sort of like blindsided by this patient that he was going to do surgery on that was an opium addict. And he couldn't treat him when the person was actively using because he was concerned about going into respiratory arrest during surgery. And so his uncle, who was a doctor of Chinese medicine, said, "Don't you remember when you were a child?" Blah, blah, blah. So Dr. Wen used Shenmen and Lung Point.
Right.
And so that's where I think it all started, right? That was the seed. That was the informational seed. But where it all started, obviously, was Lincoln, because it was concerned about being of service to fill a need in the community. I mean, that's the real fertile ground and the fertilizer and the watering and the sunlight that is. There have been people that, have said, "Oh, you need to do not these points, you need to do those points." There was a group, Ruth, Carol, there was a group out of Florida, right, that wanted to take over NADA and say they lasted about a year and a half.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
remember
yeah.
And they were opportunists.
Mhm.
Opportunism, it's a hard one, because look at a lot of rich people that are opportunists that shouldn't have those kinds of privileges, and they make it. And I would love to say that opportunism is always destined to fail, but that's a lie. In this culture, the way it's set up right now, it's still destined to succeed because of who usually benefits the most from opportunism. But I believe that, so Ron Rosen, another stream river, there's the new Battlefield acupuncture that uses a couple of different points. But I think, I mean, I am open for any better mousetrap. I have no ideological stoicism to keeping 5NP as 5NP. But if somebody can come and show me that thousands, tens of thousands of people have gotten better using this new protocol, I'm there. But don't tell me that you treated 10 people, and that you've got the answer.
Can I say something? Hello?
Hey, Carol.
Hi, Carol. Yes.
Well, David mentioned this idea of, sort of recognizing the people that you need to bolster and give, and empower, because you can see that they've really got talent and passion. And I think that largely that's a lot of what happened at Lincoln. I mean, aside from the service to the clients, there was so much, I don't even want to call it mentoring, because it was more like nurturing of people that could potentially go out and spread those seeds. That was one of the main ideas of NADA. And I think Mike was particularly talented at recognizing certain people, and also sifting through, people that maybe didn't didn't have that capacity. So when you look at the history, part of the push-pull came when with the organization, when the organization became a little more solid, there was questions about, who could be a trainer, who was okay to go ahead and spread this. Some people doing it informally, some people doing it with blessing. And when you look at NADA now, and, it's, the structure is so much, there's more structure, than there was for many, many years. Good and bad about that. It has its pluses and it has its limitations.
Yes. There was a question, where did the manual come from?
Funny you should ask.
Carol, I think you and Claudia and Rachel, right?
Oh,
It had many manifestations. You know, I think the very earliest one was from Kunat.
Oh
That's
my
right.
God.
That's right.
Oh my God.
He did the very first manual, and there was a lot of anger. I'm sorry, I don't know if all of this is what's appropriate for this particular meeting, but there was a lot of friction about that manual, and you know how many rules you should have, and who could, you know, those designations and everything. When Claudia and I took it over, we tried to kind of make it more of an outline, a structure that people could follow, but without as many prescriptions in it about behaviors and things like that. So, and it continues to evolve. The manual has, you know, this new interest in the history, in the long time history of NADA. I guess I'm not working on the manual anymore, but I understand that that whole history part is being reworked to show all of that.
Also, have to mention Judy Herrick,
Oh
who
my
took
God.
Kunat's manual, and I think that was the first giant revision of
And
the
poor
training
Judy,
manual.
Poor Judy. She put her heart and soul into
Oh,
that
man.
and got eviscerated.
It's-
Oh, it was awful. It was awful. But the work is, and I think it's important to be, you know, within the family to say, you know, we're not totally functional all the time. And and to look at that and to see where our strengths and skill sets are, and also acknowledge the foibles and the warts and the receding hairlines.
There's a couple more questions. I know you're going to have to be going soon, so I don't want to overlook them. One came a little bit before the manual question. Did you know or train with Dr. Mario Wexu in Montreal?
I knew him. I did not train with him. My formal Chinese medical training came under James Tinyao Tso at the New England School of Acupuncture. I graduated in, Jesus Christ, 1980 or 81. I don't even remember anymore. But Mario, yeah, so yeah, that's the short answer to that.
Okay. And there's a kind of a longer one, and it's related to the Medicaid issue. So coming from a post-Katrina trainee, this is the question. Regarding the potential of Medicaid covering our work in other states than Oregon, are there predictable obstacles in between presenting the idea to the right people and the actual implementation, reimbursement that you could comment on? For example, Medicaid covers it, but somehow the paperwork still doesn't align if you're not affiliated with an MD practice, even though there might be, you know, favorable ADS laws.
Sure. Oh, I definitely can comment on that. Your biggest obstacle will come from, more than likely, believe it or not, the acupuncture community, professional LACs, OMD type folks. There's constantly the threat of, you're taking money away from us, you know, and no matter how much you tell people, look, I'm within that, I'm not within that community. I have those initials, and I still practice twice a week in clinic to keep my sanity. I think, so that's one obstacle. Another obstacle will be, there's always a medical director at the state agency that has to sign off on any new menu item that needs to be put onto the Medicaid menu. And there's usually a stream or a cadre below that person that gives them the information. So, and then there is a political person, a state rep or a state senator, that you'll need to have champion that, because depending upon the state and how it's structured, will determine how Medicaid is touched or not. Now, something that everybody should know is that under the Affordable Care Act, both the original one and now 2.0, CCOs, the eligible insurance companies that handle the Medicaid dollar have incredible discretionary power and leeway to fund anything they want, and can come up with their own codes now. And if you have questions more about this, because this isn't everybody's bailiwick, I'd be more than happy to. One of the things that Mike used to say, and I know this pisses some people off, is you need to give this stuff away. So I've never charged for consultation with NADA family members. If you have questions about this stuff in particular, feel free to contact me. I would be more than happy to help. One of the biggest things, though, is getting a treatment provider on board that is willing to do this. Because as an individual, it ain't going to happen. You need to come through this from somebody in the community doing the work, especially around addictions, because that's where the easiest change will come from on a behavioral health standpoint will be through addictions, because there is some research. It's not a plethora and it's not great, but we can point, oh, Jesus, I haven't even mentioned Pat Culleton, another shoulders I stand on. I wouldn't be here today without Pat's seminal work with 46 chronic late-stage alcoholics in Minnesota, at a place up in northern Minnesota. I mean, Pat, any of you doing this work, you need to know that name. You need to be aware of her work. She's subsequently retired. Oh, I feel so bad. Culliton, Pat. Seriously, I still hold up that research from Lancet. I mean, she was published in fucking Lancet. That's a big deal, people. And we almost never talk about it, very much.
Yeah, right.
Thank you so much for that. You've shared some wonderful resources today, David, and a rich history. And we are now at the bottom of the hour. We have about 7 minutes left. So get your questions in now. We'll share announcements probably in about 5 minutes.
Nancy, are you there now? I saw you go off mute.
Yes, I'm here, David. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, sister.
I finally got this silly phone to work. And how is my blue-eyed gypsy doing? You know I still love you no matter what.
And same, Nancy. So same. God, you sound good.
Absolutely. I have a question, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Who discovered the 5-point protocol?
Okay, so when I got to Lincoln, it was all over the place, right? One of you would tell me one thing. Delaney would tell me another. Mike would tell me another. Tony would tell me another. I mean, it was nuts. What's his name? Aponte would tell me another. And I think it was in 1978, 79, there was a come together about that. And you were there, Nancy. I remember you being there. And I think that you, me, Mike, what's her name? Rabinowitz?
Yes.
Naomi?
My
Yes.
girl.
Yeah. And one other, God, I could do this for hours. God, Carol, Nancy, help me with his name. Black African-American man who did all those groups who everybody loved.
Jesse Morgan.
Thank you. Jesse was there. Jesse was there. And that, I do believe that was the solidification of the 5-needle protocol.
Interesting.
Okay.
Unless you remember it differently.
It was already 5-needle when John went in 1979, for sure.
Well, there you go. So I'd like to feel I had something to do with it. Probably not a lot. That's the other thing. One more thing is, you need to throw a little bit of humility in all of this and a lot of humor. You know, there's a lot of history, not just with NADA, but with Chinese medicine in general. But I can't help but really restate, and I think I'll probably sign off with this. It's not about the needles. It's not about the needles. It's about respecting people's lived experience. It's about understanding the disparities and inequities in our culture and how they affect addiction and mental illness and how they affect outcomes, and being open to learning about those things so that these 5 needles can do the work that they do so well. But I also believe that people, no matter how many needles you throw in, if they don't have a roof over their heads, if they don't have good food to eat, if they don't have love around them, if they don't have meaning in their life, it's going to be a hard road to hoe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. Did you have a final thought?
That wasn't good enough.
That was pretty good.
I mean, damn, I pulled it out, Tania. I mean, it's like you want the triple encore. I just want to, I appreciate this. I thought I had texted my work saying I can't leave now. So that's why I was able to stay the whole hour. I please, if you want, contact me. I saw that Tania added my email. I'm not going anywhere. People constantly are asking me, when am I going to retire? And I'm saying, what the hell am I going to do? I mean,
Right. No retirement.
This fuels my soul. And, you know, I don't have to dip into retirement yet either. There's that other piece, right? That's the balance. And it's important to acknowledge that. Yes. Oh, Nancy, I love you. I'm so glad that you got your mic working.
Listen, remember, gypsies don't retire their craft.
Yes. All right.
David,
All
thanks
right.
so much for being with us. I was really,
Love you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you, everybody, for showing up. We do have a couple of announcements. David, thank you so much for coming today.
Bye-bye. Love you all.
Bye.
Love you. Yeah.
Next month, October 14th, we're having Healing Inside Out. You can check the events page on the website for more information about that.
Can I just give a teeny little bit more on that?
Yeah.
Okay. So this event is about health and recovery in the carceral state, and we really encourage you all to come. There's been a really long-standing history of NADA within correction settings from the 80s on, and this meeting isn't going to be just about NADA. We're really highlighting other work being done in terms of both creative interventions through the arts and research initiatives. And we're closing the meeting with NADA, but we will open with a performance by young men who had been incarcerated at a juvenile facility in Maine, the nonprofit's Maine Inside Out. Anyways, it's going to be an interactive, really dynamic meeting. It does also carry continuing education for acupuncturists, for healthcare workers. So that's an added bonus, but we hope that you can make it to that. I just wanted to give a little bit more depth to that event a month from now.
Thank you. That was beautiful. And then we also have some, not us hosting these events, but you can find some other events on the forum in the member portal. Okay, and I believe that is it. Don't forget to renew your membership. And thank you so much for coming today. We really appreciate seeing y'all at the cafe.